really, and you probably heard this, but it's back to fundamentals. What is it you love to do? What is it that you love to do? And because that's what this guy came to me at the Amplified Credit Union. He's an engineer for IBM, because that's IBM Credit Union. Came to me and said, I'm an IBM engineer because that's what I wanted, that's what I was taught, that's what I was trained, that's what I was raised, that's what I want to do. I said, and you're 40-some years old and you just don't look happy being an engineer. Are you happy doing an engineer? You're passionate about it? No, not really, but what else am I going to do? I make $80,000 a year doing this. And he said, well, what I really like to do is I'd like to be a cook. I'd like to be a chef, like down at the 5-star hotel down at the Driscoll, doing coming up with all these really cool recipes, and and I said, really, that's awesome. I go, a 5-star cook, that's really cool. And I said, well, if you became a 5-star cook, how much do they get paid? And he said, well, somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 a year. In fact, I just did a loan for a sushi cook that works at one of those sushi downtown. Makes $60,000 a year. It's pretty good for cooking. And so he said, $60,000 to $80,000 a year. I said, so there's a way that you could live your life and be passionate and not be an engineer in 5 to 7 years. Is there any way you could become a cook? How easy would it become to cook? And he said, well, I guess I could take night classes. And I guess there's a culinary school here, right? Austin Culinary Academy or whatever. And I'm saying, so you could actually do what you love to do and make the money that you're making if you went and took some of your time block management and put it into learning the skill that it takes. And he goes, yeah, that's what I could do. And it really inspired him to get back on purpose. Because what he really didn't want to do, he didn't want to do like what my dad did. My dad was a real estate attorney. And he never taught me, public high school degree. I'm thinking, Dad, you had 8 years of college or whatever it is, university and Bolt Hall and all that, Berkeley. Why didn't you push me to go to college? He goes, well, I don't really want to be an attorney. I'm like, Dad, all these years, what did you want to be? He goes, I really wanted to be a meteorologist, study the weather. I was like, going, oh man, I'm here, I'm 46 and I'm doing what I love to do, but I love to, there's more things I would love to do and make a career out of it. And I'm saying, I don't want to get to the end of my life and go, I wanted to be a meteorologist when I should have, I've been a realtor all my life, but I want to be a meteorologist, So for me, the public speaking is what I would love to do. So I think the question that you have to ask, purpose is all found in the questions. It's all in questions, and everybody's purpose is different. You have to ask yourself these questions. You have to ask, again, what is it that you love to do? And then what would you love to do? So what would you love to do? And that's another good question. Sometimes it takes some pretty heavy soul searching. It takes a lot of times it goes back to what did you enjoy doing when you were a child. As my dad got further in years, one of the things he loved to do that he always did was loves to hunt and fish. And I was encouraging him. I said, Dad, you love to hunt and fish. Why don't you be one of those rangers that checks people in at these national parks? And that doesn't take a lot of, didn't have a lot of health, And just why don't you just be there and collect people's check, and then you could go check out the campfires and go fishing and hunting anytime, And it was just, I like to give those suggestions because it was like, what would you love to do? How can you take something that you did love as a child and you did love as a teen? So that will line you up with start thinking about this. And these aren't questions you just put in your notebook and close it. These are proactive questions. Is what would you like to do? There's a great book by, is it Jim Collins? Good to Great? Has everybody seen Good to Great? He has this really cool thing called the hedgehog concept. And what it is there's 3 things that you want to get to this convergence where you're doing, he talks about these companies that were good as opposed to these companies that were great. And I think you mentioned in our meeting last Thursday was that good is the enemy of great. And because you could be really good at something, but what you want to be, if you're going to live a satisfied life, is to be great at something. And the first thing is what can you be best at? And that's a good question because a lot of people go, well, I'm a school teacher in the elementary school, and you know, and that's what. Well, then good. Be the best. Write it down. I'm the best third grade math teacher in this district. In fact, what he talks about is in the world. What could you be best at in the world? So write that down. Think about that. What am I best at? And then the next thing that you really have to have is passionate. What are you passionate about? Gotta have passion. You know, I love playing guitar, and I love making music, and I love writing music, and that's some of the. But my wife says, don't quit your day job. So, you know, because that's something I love. But you know what? I'm looking at Gary Keller, and he told us in a speech. Gary Keller, you know, Keller Williams, mega millionaire, going to be the largest real estate franchise in the United States. He says, I'm doing what I'm doing so I can play guitar, teach, and write books. So he's the you know, one of the most successful real estate entrepreneurs for franchises for real estate ever. But he says, because I love to play guitar, write books, and teach. So that's what and that's what he's doing right now. I was pretty fun. This mega camp. You know, I love that whole Gary Keller thing because he loves music. He got up on stage back at Family Reunion. He got up on stage and played with Dave Seabury, who was one of the most awesome guitar players, studio guitars from Austin. And there were 2,000 people in the audience, and he got to play a ZZ Top song with Dave Seabury. You know why? Because it was his stage. He owned the place. He could do what he wanted, and he's up there doing a rock concert. And then this last one, they invited us, a couple of us up on stage, and they sat down and said, why? And it says, because right in the middle, lunch hour, before lunch, Christopher Cross comes out, Grammy winner, with his band, and there's Gary sitting on the corner. He goes, I can afford it. You know, he's hiring, you know, so he's living the dream. He can afford whoever he wants, you know. And I was just thinking about those things about, you know, he's passionate about music. So here he is in front of, this was 7,000, you know, in this auditorium in the convention center, and he can hire his own band and play with them if he wants to. And so he's doing what he loves to do. He's doing what he has to work to do what he's passionate about. So I was pretty excited about that. And then the next thing is economic viability with what you do. That's really important because you could be the most fantastic, you know, a BB stacker, and if that's your passion, you can be the best at it in the world. You're really passionate, but can you make an economic model out of it where you can make money? So these are the hedgehog concept that Jim Collins talks about. I think it really is important because once you get all these combined, that's when life really can take off, and you really can become very successful at what you're doing.